Welcome to Pro Practice, your guide to piano mastery. I'm Josh Wright, and today's tutorial is part 2 in a series of 2 tutorials covering the first movement of the Piano Sonata No. 21 in C major, Opus 53 by Beethoven. In part 1, we covered bars 1 through 156, which is the exposition and the development. Just a quick note on that, just so none of you are confused. Some editions count the first and second endings as separate bars. Others, like this one, this is a Henley text, which I highly recommend everyone get. It's a very, very good edition. It does not count those as separate bars, so the first and second ending. I just wanted to start with that in case any of you are confused, thinking the recap doesn't start in 156 in my version, it starts in 158. In this edition, it is 156. So this is the recapitulation. So in sonata form, we have the exposition, the development, the recapitulation, and then in this we have a coda, which we will be getting to. So we will go from bar 156 to the end of the piece, starting off with the recapitulation. By the way, if you want more information on the form and analysis of this piece in the different key areas, check out part 1 of this tutorial, because we went into depth at the beginning of that last tutorial. So starting here, we just came off of this really busy let's see. And we're back. One important thing that we discussed at the beginning of the last tutorial is staying down in the keys here will not only help you play softer, but it will also help you get a darker, slightly more sustained sound. So rather than really sharp and playful, this is that's especially difficult to achieve right after you come out of this scale and land there. So what I like to do is be full and rich there. Try not to be harsh. That was something that I did early on. Kind of smacking that. I don't like that. And just have this bubbling up beneath the surface. And if you didn't achieve the softest texture that you wanted coming from a fortissimo in bar 155 going to pianissimo in 156, use the material in bar 160, the pianissimo on the B flat major, to bring the sound down even more. So and we already discussed this in the first tutorial, so I won't go too much into this, but I like to go to here and then back off, and then back off even more. And something that we might do a little bit differently this time is take a little time to get into that one. So it might sound something like this. Maybe take a little time, put that on the beat. Okay, and before we get to this surprise harmony, I wanted to just give you all a quick reminder to not rush that left hand. It's really easy after all this excitement we just... to, build that up and your adrenaline is pumping, and then to really let this kind of get out of hand. So keep this steady. Very strange move. At the beginning, we saw over in bar 12, just a little half cadence there on G, and then before we went into that, here Beethoven is toying with us by going to an A flat. Now, what does A flat have to do with C major? You could say it's the flat 6, or you could think of it as the Neapolitan of 5, because the Neapolitan keys the key of the Neapolitan in C major would be D flat. So that's going to have a big implication later of creating some harmonic tension in the coda. And sure enough, let's take a look at what happens in 167 through 170. A flat major, so the Neapolitan of 5, and then what does he do here? That's the Neapolitan of 1. So, and then we settle on B flat, and then we have this strange little link that we didn't see before. And then we're back to C major. So it's very obscure. Beethoven's having a great time teasing us in here. So play that up. And you have to, as the performer, act like this is the first time you're hearing it as well. I'll always remember I took a class with Stephen Whiting at the University of Michigan. Brilliant teacher. I really loved his class. It was all about Beethoven. And he said, I remember, I don't know what piece he was talking about, but it very well could have been this or something else. But he said, I remember laughing out loud when I was young, as a teenager, when I was sitting in this Beethoven concert, because it was so funny, the keys that he was teasing us with. Now, that sounds a little geeky, like, oh, that's a classical musician thing, but it is true. It's very... You have to pretend like, oh my gosh, that's the first time I'm hearing it too. And then, what are we doing here? So add a lot to the suspense. So I would keep this fairly in tempo, and then a little extra time there, and then not sure where we're going, and then one thing that I really liked here, I was a little bit expressive when I first took this to my brilliant teacher, Susan Duhlmeyer. Big thanks to Susan for all of her insights in the lessons she gave me on this sonata. I took it to her a couple of times this year, just to get her thoughts before I performed it, and then also before these tutorials. So big thanks to Susan. She said what I was doing before was... And she said, I think it needs to be more simple. So maybe feature more of the left hand. Keep the right hand active, but very quiet. And I really liked the bareness and the simplicity that brought. So here's what that sounds like. Let's see. And then, so there, that's the sound I want. Just a little bit more, velvety touch. That way you don't have to smack this and startle the audience too much. It's going to startle them anyway, but I don't like a harsh sound right there. That will be plenty. Okay, moving on. We already talked about many different techniques. To get that figure nice and aligned between the hands, to keep it even. Talked a lot about that in part 1. So if you need help with that, check out part 1. But here, rather than going, which is what we saw the first time, he adds an extra measure. And he goes to an unexpected key, F major. And then he's playing off of some chromaticism. What is that chord? That's our augmented 6th chord. Now this was a very hard measure for me and for both students that I've taught this to in the past. There's just something about doing that along switching that left hand. If you've played it, you probably know what I'm talking about. It doesn't look hard. It doesn't sound hard, but it is. At least it was for me, and everyone I know who's played this piece is that I've asked about this, they're like, yeah, that's an awkward measure. So the fingering that I came up with that helped me, and the student that was working on it around the same time as I was. So I personally just love 4-2 to 1 on these. And then I liked 4-2 to 1, and then I like 4-1, 4-1. Rather than trying to do something like 5-3, 5-2, 5-3, or something like that, or even bringing the thumb down and then 5-3 right there. It just always felt a little shaky in my hand. So, and a couple exercises I wanted to share to get this nice and lined up.